Hi, thank you everyone for the opportunity and also thanks to RAI for this opportunity. So I'm going to start off quickly. Okay, it's working. Just reminding, I think we've been talking a lot about retail and technology, and of course, people think Intel is technology. And I think earlier we heard the impact during pandemic, right? There's how community came together. But at the core of that, a lot of that was technology. It's just reminding that technology by itself is not really that useful. Technology has the transformative power to really help people and our communities. And I think I'm just starting with that thread, just share a little bit about at least what we are doing at Intel. And I'm kind of bringing more from a global perspective. And I'm going to close at something that our local team here in India built for our local markets. So the first question, at least I got asked as in a panel last week about coming out of pandemic and a lot of this stuff, the role of technology. And I won't go into the detail, but the summary here is that coming out of pandemic, actually the investment in technology in retail industry is only going to accelerate. And what we observed, again, from a global perspective, was that the retailers that actually came out ahead, the ones that were able to survive, were the ones who were already investing technology, who already had the initiatives. And they were able to do that. It wasn't not so much about technology, but the adaptability. I think Kulin, a panel he mentioned earlier, the flexibility, agility. And I think that was the key. And what that means is the mindset of being agile, mindset of being adaptable, and that mindset goes with adoption of technology as well. So at least I'm coming here with kind of expectation. I've spent like almost 14 years now. Started again, not retail as an industry, but from the other side. And I've seen a big shift now where investment technology used to be mostly in the back end, mostly to keep the business running, versus now it's actually coming in the front, all in the operations and customer experiences, and then pretty much everywhere. Okay, this is just furthering on top. So we talked about the technology and the investments going on and what are the areas. I won't read the list, but there's a lot of conversation earlier as well about personalization, right? Of course, I think retail always has been about emotions and people, right? It was never transactional. Like going back to, I guess, 30, 40, 50 years, the small kirana stores and people was emotions. The value that technology has come in is how do we do that, that personalization, that one-on-one connection the small shop owners probably had with the neighborhood people, but be able to do that at scale. And the important aspect, at least, that what we have learned is it's not so much about using technology for personalization by couponing and targeted ads on one-on-one, but where there's a biggest impact is how we empower the store associates to drive that personalization, still kind of bringing that all human side of it, right? It's still the interactions people to people, but technology allows you to build those connections. And of course, we can talk about inventory and other capabilities that are needed in support, but everything else goes personalization, and technology is giving you all the back-end operational capabilities to deliver on that promise. So before jumping on what a specific solution I want to talk about is, again, an approach. So if you look at the legacy, there's a lot of historical solutions out there. It's the silos and one-off, and a lot of them were as a necessity, but a lot of them were also as legacy. But going forward, at least the way we are seeing in terms of how the technology will get deployed, and this is the earlier conversation from the panel when Kulin mentioned that it's not about the one-off, it's how do we create a plumbing that's a little bit more open, it's flexible and adaptable. So instead of having these siloed solution, I think an approach where at least the plumbing and the infrastructure could be pretty standard and flexible, but based on open source technologies, which is flexible and adaptable. But then as we are trying new solutions or we are deploying new capabilities, I think they can all ride on common infrastructure. And if something doesn't work, I think Ashwin was talking about, like earlier you are trying things, see what works, what doesn't work. I think this kind of a foundational infrastructure that's scalable, which is open, allows for that experimentation where you can try something, it doesn't work, but try a different solution. Or if you're trying one, you're not going to try 10 solutions. So at least start with one, and if that works, then you can add the next one, or you can add the third and fourth one. It's an incremental approach to adopting and deploying the technology. So here is an example where we've been using this word workload consolidation. Of course, it's coming more from the technology background and it may not make sense from the industry perspective. But really what it means is like, hey, again, going back to the siloed approach, if you start thinking about the solutions, so the pieces, the infrastructure, but everything else is a workload. And if we can start consolidating those on a common infrastructure, that allows for the cost saving. Because one of the, again, at least listening to the retailers and listening to other stakeholders, the cost, at least historically, has been the biggest impediment to the deployment of technology. So how do you reduce the cost and the infrastructure for the retailers? So this is where the earlier example we're talking about is a common plumbing that allows for a lot of different solutions on a common infrastructure, right? So that's really where the idea of the workload consolidation is. And we kind of been working on it in time. So one of the things our team did is we worked with few retailers, but of course for Intel, it's not just we providing technology as a company that's pretty far back in the value chain. It's about partnerships. So everything we do is the innovations. Of course, we work with retailers and end users, but we bring in our partners to go really drive that scale. So here's an example where you can potentially have, I'm using the common solutions in a retail environment, it's a point of sale. Typically, it's a digital sign. I think everybody has those for surveillance. And of course, you got the AI boxes. And if you start looking at it, historically, they all got deployed as individual solutions, which can add up in terms of the cost pretty quickly. However, if you go with the standard approach, and by the way, you can see that back in the booth as well, there's a base hardware platform, which you don't have to have 3 different hardware platforms that you would have done in the past. It's one common hardware, but now I'm consolidating all of these different applications on one, and these applications could be added, right? These call them workloads. So point of sale pretty much becomes a workload. So think of it as a software-defined functions, not necessarily workloads and functions that include both hardware and software. So in a way, we have disaggregated the hardware from the applications. And pretty much this was trying to demonstrate, like, all of these different things which were standing as silos and individual components are all running on a common set of hardware. So this is allows for the orchestration of the ecosystem. I think earlier they talked about in the panel on a common set of capabilities rather than everybody coming in differently, and they're all putting their own different boxes. Sometimes they may or may not even work with each other, further creating the fragmentation and the silos. Of course, there are silos in the earlier as well, but now this is further making it even worse. Okay, what happened here? Now, so here's an example of retail in a box, and I think this is my time to invite some of our partners. So I can invite Sridhar from Outdo. Bhaskar, would you like to join as well? I guess all of you can come. From Posiflex, and we have Kumar from RAI. Oh. I'll just hand off to you. I'll just stand there. Easier. We can sit over there and just join. Come on.
I'll do my part. It's my turn. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So firstly, I want to thank Shailesh for giving an opportunity to come and present what we are doing for Intel. And I would like to start with a simple statement they told us, is saying that our customers don't want to spend any extra money, so make the software do what the state of art today can provide. And when I asked them state of art in what area, and obviously, we want to do AI, we want to do counting, we want to do dwell time, we want to do demographics, and all the AI which is required. And last year, September, we started working on this particular project. And so basically, we don't want any extra money, but you should deliver all this. And that was really the mandate given to us. I'm happy to tell you that over the last 6 months that we worked on this particular project, we have been able to transform a regular POS machine into a full-fledged category A AI deployment, where you can, with 95% plus kind of accuracy, achieve everything that you would normally do with an expensive, power-hungry, siloed, graphic-intensive product, which typically market demands you to. And the reason, the driving force behind this was when they told us is that Retailers are coming out of a pandemic. They don't want to put too much money behind new technologies. So see how you can make it work. So here I have this product developed for running on a simple POS. So if you have any Intel-based POS, which doesn't have to have a GPU, because that's one of the demands in any computer vision requirement. Here what we do is, when the POS is not being used, we use the CPU cycles and make it sweat a bit more, and then we collect miscellaneous data from the existing cameras and arrive at all the analytics, which relates to what the customer wants really. The count, the demographic, the repeat visitor, how many times a person has come in your store, then obviously aggregate all this extra. I want to tell you that when we started it, we didn't believe that we can make it work on the POS. But with POSiflex supporting us in many ways, we were able to do it. And I will invite now Bhaskar to tell his experience about working with us and talk about how his POS machines are getting upgraded with this kind of technology. And if you have any questions, because there is very less time, I would like to take it after this session is over. Bhaskar.
Thank you, Sridhar. It's nice to be here in this platform after a long time. Thanks, Kumar, to make it happen. So, the pause is a pause, P-A-U-S-E. What Dr. Hitesh said, change is inevitable. So, thanks that we are not changed. Point of sale remains same. Whether you go hyper-local, whether you go online, offline, point of sale remains same, because you go to the shop, you need to have the experience. And in the change management, what happens is, how do you adapt the technology? Like Biju said, direct impact of technology onto the stores. What is in store for a customer experience? That's what we are trying to demonstrate over here. And Intel being the thought leader in this platform, we come together to understand and explain to our retailers and to the consumers finally how a retail in a box can help and empower your retail associates to ensure that the customer experience is intact. Today, as Sridhar said, each of these things are in silos. Your point of sale is separate, your digital analytics is separate. You try to make different startups make this happen in different silos. Until otherwise, all of these data are combined and have a meaningful impact on your store performance, nothing is going to happen. So what we're trying to explain here is, the retail in a box gives you the point of sale, the video analytics, the digital signage, all clubbed together as a single solution. It doesn't matter whether it is a chain stores or a SME retailers. So what is important today is the technology is not only for the chain stores where you have a very professional CIOs, CTOs, and you have IT managers to deliver this. What is left over is the small and medium retailers, how to make the same digital experience or the consumer experience that you want to provide, even to a small format stores as tier 3 or tier 4, what Mr. Ashwin has said, to have the same experience. That's where today this retail in a box, where Intel is trying to provide along with POSiflex Outdo, is going to deliver that particular digital experience, what you can do it in the first tier 1 retailers or tier 1 cities to the tier 3 cities as well. It is easy to deploy. It is easy to make meaningful data derived to make the store performance more meaningful. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's the video.
This is there in the
Hi,
in our booth.
this
You
is
can also
Retail
visit
in a
it.
Box. We have multiple solutions that a retailer needs consolidated in this stable, Intel-based, reliable hardware. So the primary solution a retailer needs is this billing application, the point of sales application. As you can see, this has the point of sales application as the primary workload. Now, apart from the point of sales application, this also has a surveillance solution running here, which is taking a feed from the camera. So the retailer does not need to invest in a separate box for his surveillance solution. Now, where it gets really interesting is the surveillance solutions footage is actually having an AI model running on it. And there are two things that the AI model is doing here. It is doing people counting. It will tell you how many people have walked into your store. And it's also giving alerts on whatever you want, like somebody tampering the camera and all that. Now, the AI solution is actually using the GPU core of the processor. So your POS application's performance is not affected at all. So the CPU is free to do what it is doing. Also, we have multiple OS-based solutions. So there is Windows and Linux-based solutions running on the same system on a stable virtualization platform. The other workload that's here is the digital signage. So the retailer can use this to earn some extra stream of income. So overall, this is a one-box solution for all the technology needs of the retailer. Do visit the Intel booth and see for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Shailesh.
Okay, so thank you, Shailesh and the team. I think my job here was to try and bring in a concept around what's going to happen. The concept is that on the one hand, we've got retailers and various customers whom we want to create value to. On the other hand, there's a possibility to collaborate. At the start of the pandemic, I did talk about this to many people, telling that you should collaborate to make things happen. There are no pure plays anymore. A bank is going to become a retailer. Sometimes a food service provider is going to become a retailer. Sometimes a small retailer is going to become a larger retailer in a manner wherein is not only offline, is also becoming an online player. So I think all kinds of things is going to happen. And as we keep providing services, it's going to help everybody. So I'm very glad that Intel's taken this effort to make sure everybody came together. I'm also glad that they're not looking at this as a cost enterprise. This is actually, in my opinion, a revenue thought process. Because on the one hand, you've got a digital signage that can give revenue to the retailer. So it's not looking at purely costs. On the other hand, there's a possibility that you may be able to trigger purchases because of what you show on the digital platform. You're securing yourself by creating security features. You're also doing billing at the front end. I love what's happening. This can't happen just by one company. Happens because of people coming together. So thank you, Intel, for bringing this in-a-box solution, especially for smaller retailers. As Retailers Association, our job is to make sure that value is provided for all kinds of retailers. So that's really useful to all of us. Thank you very much.
I guess with this, we'll close. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the presentation. And I'd like to thank Kumar, Bhaskar, and Sridhar for amazing partnership. I just want to reiterate again, like the way we look at it, no one company can solve any of these problems. Like there are a lot of challenges in the industry. And I think the way we're going to solve is what I call collaboration, but also co-innovation, right? That should require the collaboration with retailers, brands, and the technology partners, but more important, the consumers as well, because end of the day, we're creating value for the consumers. It is about their experience. So involving those consumers in these, what I call experiments, really, we don't know right away. So it's that agile and creative approaches, that's how we're gonna win. And involving multiple partners also brings what I call these diverse perspectives. Because when we bring diverse perspectives, that's what we innovate. I always call innovation is a team sport. It's not an individual sport. And that's the approach. With this, I guess we still have time for Q&A, correct? No? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the panel. Oh.